Oh no, I'm killing everyone. What did I do wrong to make this happen? God, save them. Okay, well, that's not quite true. I did kill some people in Directive 8020, but not everybody, and I think that's a good start. So let's rewind a bit and go back to the beginning and tell you what Directive 8020 is all about, shall we? Now, this is the latest Dark Pictures game from Supermassive Games, and unlike the previous games, it's not part of the Dark Pictures anthology that started with Man of Medan, moving through to Little Hope and House of Ashes, and finally The Devil in Me, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And this one takes a slightly different turn, and it's a sci-fi stealth-based horror game with action elements in it as well. Now, if you know me, you know my content is all about horror and sci-fi most of the time, and that's because I am a massive fan of both of them. And when this trailer first hit, I was already very excited because I'm a big fan of movies such as Alien, Event Horizon, and Life. And it also looked like this game had a kind of the thing going on and a bit of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And I love John Carpenter as well. So it really does draw from the atmosphere of those films. And not only those, but also games such as Mass Effect, Dead Space, and of course, Alien Isolation. It borrows a lot from that game. Now, before we get into this review proper, it is worth saying that there will be some spoilers in here, but they're not really spoilers because there's so many options and different things you can do in this game anyway. Crew members can live and die depending on the different things you do. So I think it's fair to say that your gameplay experience is going to be very different to mine, so you can watch this spoiler-free. So this being a Supermassive Games game, you're going to know this is very much a story-based game, just like the other ones from the days of Until Dawn. There's lots of exposition in here, and they've done a really great job. The story really pulls you in and sets that mystery in space, and has got that real alone in space vibe going on, which I love. It all starts off in zero gravity. People have got magnetic boots so they can walk around the ship without floating around. And it does really make me think of Event Horizon when things like devices are floating about in space. And then the second thing you'll notice straight away is the fidelity of this game. It's absolutely stunning. The character models are some of the best I've ever seen in a game, and it really captures their every facial detail, of course, and that's important when there's mimics and there's people that might be lying or not. The facial capture is second to none here. Now, I'm playing this on Xbox, and it will look even better, trust me, on PC with all your settings turned to maximum. So if you want something that's got lots of eye candy, definitely check out this game. It's a massive leap from The Devil in Me, which was their previous game for sure. There's even details I wouldn't have thought to put in the game. For instance, when the sleep technicians are repairing the ship out on the hull and they've got their helmets on, you even see the breath on the inside of their helmets condensing when they talk to each other, which is a really nice touch and something I wouldn't have thought of. It's this level of realism, both in the facial capture and in everything around them, that makes you really care about these characters and, of course, feel more jeopardy when they're about to live or die, depending on how you treat them and the decisions you make. So to set the scene, and I won't go too much into the story to avoid spoilers, but the game begins with Sims and Carter, who are these sleep technicians, and they're looking after the rest of the crew who are currently sleeping in stasis in their pods, while their ship, the Cassiopeia, has traveled 12 light years all the way to Tau Ceti F. And what they're doing is they're going to survey the planet before the ship just behind them comes in, and hopefully they land on it and start to colonize that planet as the Earth and everything around it has gone to shit. While they're going about their daily duties, they hear a sudden noise, all the alarms go off, and they consult the Oracle, the ship's computer. Of course, every ship in space needs a talking computer to find out what's happened. It seems a meteorite has come in and smashed through the hull into the ship, and they go out to investigate it. So they go outside, repair the hull, everything's fine, and that's where the first disaster happens. Yes, Sims gets caught in a hull explosion and almost gets sucked off into space. And of course, you can stop this by hammering a button on your controller as part of a QuickTime event. If you succeed, you grab hold of her and can go about your day. If you don't, of course, she can go spinning off into space. Now, there's something about this scene and scenes in other films and games where this has happened, where I really do have a fear of being jettisoned into space alone. I know it's never going to happen, just like drowning in quicksand, but that's always a fear I've got. So this part really didn't sit well with me. Now, fortunately, if you do make a mistake and one of your crew members dies, this game has a thing called turning points, and it's one of the big features of the game. Instead of playing through the entire game, then going back into just chapters and seeing what goes differently, you can actually see the branching moments via the menu and go back and see what would have happened differently. You can do that straight away or later on, and also that won't necessarily affect what happens later on unless you want it to, so there's no drama with going back and seeing what you might have done differently. It's also great that you can go back and look for collectibles and secrets in the game, and it shows you via a little icon as well, which means you're not wasting time if you're a completist and you want to go back after you've played the game and grab those collectibles. Certainly a great feature, and Supermassive Games should be commended for that. So that's the main mechanic in the game, obviously, quick time events to stop your members of the crew dying. But also decisions you need to make. Now, these decisions can affect the traits that your characters have and ultimately how they might behave later on, but they also have direct consequences in the storyline. The other main features of this game are a lot of running. You run away from creatures a lot in this game, typically running and vaulting over things. Of course, if you press the wrong button and do it too many times, your character could be injured or die, and a lot of sneaking around too. Now, I think this element is something they brought into the game, which means you get more control over the characters, but ultimately it does feel quite samey. There's basically an alien life form in the room, and you have to create distractions and sneak around it to get to your next objective. And there is a lot of sneaking through ducts in this game. There was just too much of it, in my opinion. A lot of crawling around and not much happening within that. At least in Alien Isolation, you always felt like you were always being stalked by the xenomorph. Here, it was just a way of getting from A to B to C most of the time, and I only felt in jeopardy a couple of times while being in those ducts. But those moments, to be honest, did deliver some jump scares, and the jump scares in this game really did work for me, so well done on that horror element. Alongside that, there's some light puzzling as well, some doors to open, some power to be rerouted, and also one puzzle about putting a chemical formula together, which was the one that taxed my brain the most. But trust me, you'll work it out. Now, of course, because this alien life form comes on board and starts to grow and go all purple and get into all the machines, it also mimics things it touches or comes into contact with as well. And that's a really big part of this game, because there is that distrust element. Sometimes you have to make decisions about who you think is the real crew member when they're both right in front of you. And there are clues about who's who, but you do get that whole feeling of paranoia throughout the whole game. There's a scanning sequence, which is very, very similar to The Thing. That whole element of the mimic and who's who is a really nice touch and keeps you guessing all the way through. So yeah, the story, I was pretty taken along for the ride here. I thought there was enough jeopardy and enough questions and answers in there to make me keep wanting to play the game. One thing I wasn't a massive fan of was that time would jump around in this game. So it isn't linear. They've done a thing where it does jump to a few days later on the ship, and then it even jumps back to the past before the ship even launched. So therefore you learn a bit about the motives of Corinth, the space organization that's trying to do things that aren't always immediately apparent. Another thing I thought was really cool in this game, setting the atmosphere, was the music tracks between the chapters. So once the chapter's finished, they play a music sequence that breaks up the action. But I must say, some of the tracks are really good. They've got one from Portishead in there that you might know in one of the big reveal moments, and also a band called Blood Red Shoes provided a few of their tracks, and I thought that was a really nice touch, really punctuated those chapter endings. As well as the music, the sound design overall is top notch on this game. As you'd expect on a spaceship, there's those alarms going off in the distance, there's the noises of doors whooshing, opening and closing, there's the clunking and bangs and hums of the ship as well. It really delivered an atmosphere that made me go, oh no, I'm on a spaceship and everything's going to go wrong. So all in all, I would say this is my favourite Dark Pictures game so far. I really did like The Devil in Me. That was good from a kind of slasher trope kind of vibe that I like. But this one, because I love sci-fi and I love horror, really did do it for me. It's not perfect by any means. There are some things I would have done differently in terms of the pacing, but I certainly will be replaying this or going back to the turning points to see how things play out if I did things differently. So do remember to watch some of those live streams I'll be doing, subscribe to the channel, hit notifications for when I do that, and you'll be notified first to play along with me. I'm going to give Directive 8020 8 out of 10.